Welcome to the opening plenary of the 2021 National Chinese Language Conference. I'm Pam Delfoss, World Language and Global Education Consultant with the state of Wisconsin, and it is my pleasure to moderate this plenary on the timely topic of innovation. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the context in which we are coming together for this discussion. The global health pandemic and dynamics of inequity and injustice in our communities are stressors, but they are also teachers that have made things visible to us that require our attention, our learning, and our action as educators. For most of us, this learning curve has been steep, and it has included learning how to use new technologies to engage and advance language learning, and to do so through the lens of equity. We are so lucky today to be able to hear from colleagues who are innovators among us. Each of our panelists were leveraging digital technologies for teaching and learning long before the pandemic required us all to do so. So let's start by asking our guest speakers to briefly introduce themselves and their roles, along with a short description of the context in which they teach. Ping?
Hi everyone, my name is Ping Wu. I teach in an all-girl private school in Midwest, in Ohio. I have been teaching in the same school for about 11 years, and my students range from 5th graders all the way to graduating seniors. My job is primarily on teaching, with sometimes hosting events, working with community members to educate people on various Chinese cultural and events. That's my part.
Thank you. Karen?
Hey guys, my name is Karen and my Chinese name is Yi Xiu. I'm a Chinese teacher and the founder of Chilling Chinese Instagram and YouTube channel. I'm also the host of Chill Chat, a Chinese learning podcast established in 2019. My main focus is online teaching in a one-on-one setting, and the majority of my students and audience are adults. I'm greatly honored to be invited to join today's panel and have this discussion with all of you.
Thank you. And Marianne?
Hi, my name is Marianne Durso. I'm the Chinese teacher and the technology coordinator at Mitchell Elementary School. It's a pre-kindergarten to 8th grade school, and it is a Chicago public school.
Thank you, Marianne. And Dr. Song?
My name is Song Jihua. I'm a teacher in the School of Artificial Intelligence within Normal University. I have working in the area of international Chinese language education for years, and mainly dedicated in researching and developing digital resources and smarter platform.
Thank you. So glad you're with us. Based on what I have learned from each of our panelists during our planning sessions, we can look forward to the next hour being full of insights, ideas, and inspiration. Please know that you as participants are also an important part of this plenary. We invite you to help us identify trends by responding to 2 polls, and also to share resources, ideas, and any questions you might have using the chat feature. Please do let us know if your question is directed at a specific panelist, and those questions will be answered at the end of the plenary as time allows. So the time has come for our first audience poll. Hopefully you find access to that poll, and we'd love you to identify which option best describes your current teaching or leadership environment. Are you in person, hybrid, virtual, synchronous or asynchronous, or a combination of the 2? Please reply to that poll as you are able. And we'll look for trends in your responses to make connections through our conversation this evening. We'll give you just a moment to do that. I think we would all agree that our learning environments today are very different from those of the recent and distant past. And this plenary will invite us to reflect on what we've learned from the past and our present practice, but also to challenge us to face and prepare for the future. So let's open with a question for two of our panelists focused on the past and the present. This question will be directed to Ping and to Karen. And as you listen to their reflections, you're encouraged to compare them with your own experiences and learning. So Ping and Karen, what have you learned from your experiences with hybrid or virtual teaching that impacts how you engage students and facilitate learning today? I'll ask you to begin,
I'm going to
Ping.
start off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this past 1.5 years has taught us many things. And in my situation, very specifically, I have come to realize two major takeaways. Number one is really my job is to teach the students. So the human connection outweighs all the other things such as technology, the content. It's really reaching out to my students, speaking to their soul. So understanding them. So I always put my students before everything. So in doing so, I have learned to change my mindset to be a lot more flexible and also how to tweak my lessons to utilize the existing conditions, whether it's virtual or hybrid, as Chinese phrase goes, 因地制宜. So when we were all virtual, we had some sibling interviews, taken the idea from TikTok videos. So they have to invite their siblings to come in and answer questions with their eyes closed by pointing a finger, answering questions such as, who is dad's favorite child in the house? So that's a way to connect with my students just by changing my mindset of anything is possible in a Chinese language class, not just the textbook knowledge, it's anything, as long as it's about the students. Then the second takeaway that I have had is I have had a lot of time to reflect on what's working in my class, what's not working in an online setting. So I kind of, through trial and error, I have summarized the 4 magical ingredients to cook a delicious Chinese lesson. Number one is personalization. I personalize my curriculum and my content to tailor to my students' interests. So we would do reality shows because to a certain extent, my students really like to look at very handsome Chinese boys. And we talk about their talents. So then second part is to provide them high quality language input. I have the design of what language structures I want to teach them in mind, but I present it in a very interacting and engaging way through activities, through discussions, through anything that, like a BuzzFeed quiz, anything the students may have something to say. The third ingredient that I have found useful is information gap. Information gap adds a lot of spice and novelty into the lesson. So the class is always sort of unexpectedly fun and interesting, and they walk away with a better understanding of more of their commonality rather than their differences. And number 4 is really what we all need, movement, adding physical activities to re-energize the students. So to put all of those 4 ingredients into one example, which I did and was quite successful among my students, I had a unit called Please Open Your Fridge. The idea came from a Chinese reality show, entertainment show called 拜托了冰箱. They look at celebrities' fridge and try to ask questions. Why do you have that? So I started out introducing my kitchen and my fridge, but not showing what's inside the fridge because my target vocab was what's inside, above, different colors, how do you divide things. Then I asked my students to predict using information gap, what's in my fridge under different categories. What type of fruits do I have? What type of fruit, what type of meat do I have? Vegetables. So we had a very lively discussion. And it's also testing like how much do they think they know me? How much do I think I know them, know each other? Then I ended up opening my fridge. Then I asked the students if they have the same item. A lot of teachers do comparative structures. if they have the same item, they take it out, then we compare that. And also there's a very interesting question I asked them, like, please take out the most unique item from your fridge. And that's the information gap. I had no idea, and that's where all the crazy fun started. They shared different items and talked about the story behind those items, and then leading to different family dietary preferences and some cultural elements. So all of these surrounded a refrigerator. And we also created a mystery drink like barista, mixing up. My students had me drink soy sauce with Coca-Cola and Sprite. Was not bad, so to my surprise. All of those, I feel that it's really, my goal is to make a connection. And that's something I felt in the in-classroom setting, I could not easily uh, to reach a replica in a classroom setting. So to a certain extent, I'm thankful for the experience which have allowed me to try this and to come to the conclusion of what really worked for effective classroom and really have fun with my students and know about them more. Yes, so those are the major takeaways that I'm sharing for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ping, for sharing how you teach from the heart and target the heart of your learners. Karen, can you share with us what you've learned from your experiences and how it impacts your practice today?
Thank you, Pam. So I think in 2020, we definitely see a variety of new methods emerge to accommodate this shift from traditional in-person learning environment to a more virtual one. So I would like to highlight two benefits technology brings that I have noticed the past year, which are options and accessibility. Because of these different platforms and mediums for communicating information, there are now a lot of options for every learning style and every teaching style. And I will be mainly highlighting social media because that is where mainly my focus is on. Social media can be an excellent tool for knowledge sharing and engagement with students. And it provides many different ways for students to interact with material, such as visual, auditory, or text-based, can be short or long. And also give opportunities for students to be exposed to the language they're studying more often. For example, you can listen to a podcast while you're driving or exercising now. But I want to address that how these different platforms are utilized for teaching can be very different based on their own unique features. For example, on YouTube, people tend to watch videos. You can watch videos from a few minutes long to up to a length of a movie. But on Instagram, users generally consume much shorter videos. So you can sit down with your laptop and watch a 40-minute long lecture on YouTube or learn one sentence structure in Chinese during your lunch break on Instagram. So I think it's important to understand these differences of these platforms and utilize them accordingly. So for these reasons, I have incorporated several different platforms in my Mandarin curriculum. For example, on my Instagram page, Chilling Chinese, I mainly upload short videos that are less than 1 minute long, sharing one sentence structure or just one phrase. You can think of it as video flashcards. And I started this kind of word of the day post when I started my Instagram page in 2018. This was inspired by outfit of the day. So I thought, why not do word of the day? And the response from my audience has been overwhelmingly positive. People seem to really love these short, entertaining pieces of information to learn Chinese. But in my podcast, Chill Chat, the content is usually 20 to 30 minutes long because the students, when they're just listening, when they're resting on their sofa or folding the laundry, they seem to be able to tolerate the study a bit longer. And because of these different ways that knowledge can be presented, it also gives students more options to explore when, where, and most importantly, how they want to learn. So students with different learning styles can try out different methods that really works for them. So I think overall social media has the potential to incorporate learning in your daily life and making scrolling through your phone less of a waste of a time and more of something that can move you toward your language goals. And in terms of how I use it to bring up engagement with my students, I think these platforms can be great to provide a medium for organic, meaningful conversation and interaction to happen. For example, when I raise a question on my Instagram post, students start discussing in the comment section and even answer each other's questions and share their challenges. I sometimes put out a quiz on my Instagram story and providing me some data on common mistakes my students are making in Chinese. I also see more teachers starting their own social media channels to provide more variety to their students. So I think I definitely see an increase of people using social media for to both teach and learn. I would say the last benefit I see in leveraging social media is it gives students more autonomy for their study. Within the past year, not only did I see an increase of teachers starting their own brand, but also increasing amount of students starting their own social media page to document their learning experiences, their progress, or challenges. And this makes learning a more student-centered, self-motivated process and gives them much more autonomy to manage their own study. So I think through virtual learning, especially the experience for us in 2020, we have learned that digital technology has tremendous potential for creating powerful learning experiences if used properly. New ways of facilitating learning and engaging students are being created all the time. As we explore these new methods, it's important to remember to provide our students, especially the kids and teenagers, with proper guidance and instruction in terms of how to behave, protect themselves, and avoid abuse in online communities. And that's my part. Thank you.
Karen, thank you so much for stretching our thinking about how to use diverse digital technologies, platforms, social media, sites to really be responsive to our learners and where they are and how they learn. So thank you. It's so important for all of us to make time to reflect on what we've learned through our recent experiences and to identify what we want to carry from that into the future, and perhaps more importantly, what we want to let go of and leave in the past. And as we do that, to think about what we want and need to learn next as we move in the future. So that will bring us to our next audience poll, and we'll invite everyone to participate in that poll by helping us communicate how you feel about the potential impact of artificial intelligence on our profession. So are you excited, concerned, or just really feel like you need to learn a lot more before you can weigh in on your response to artificial intelligence and how it may change our practice? So we'll let you respond to that poll, take a look at one another's responses and what's trending, and think about that as we all acknowledge that change is challenging. And as teachers, we are leaders of learning. Artificial intelligence and other innovations challenge us to explore and engage in transformative professional learning and to change our practice. So let's move now into an exploration of what change means and why it matters. And that question is going to be presented to Mary Ann and Dr. Song. As you listen to their responses, I want you to listen to their perspectives and think about how they compare with your own. So Mary Ann and Dr. Song, what is your vision for the future of language education and its role in our society? And how can we best prepare for that future? Mary Ann.
Sure, I can start. My vision for the future lies in tech and in society. Tech has always made my life easier before the pandemic, during it, and it's going to continue to make it easier in the future. Before the pandemic, we all used tech, right? In my classroom, I had iPads, I had Chromebooks, and tech was another teacher with me. During the pandemic, like Ping was saying, there was a mindset shift that I saw. I saw more thinking and problem solving going on between students and teachers. The tech shift that I saw was that we couldn't simply use old tools anymore, because I had to use tools that actually showed student engagement at all times. Tools are always going to change. What we're really teaching students is how to think and how to use tools in general so that they can use tech to problem solve and can find the best way to communicate, show, and transfer their knowledge. Now, as for the future, we will continue to see inequities with regards to tech devices and connectivity, racial inequities, income, physical, emotional inequities. That's why it's very important to regularly assess and gather data to find out where your students are as far as their language learning is concerned. Curriculum and assessments are also going to be rewritten somewhat. And there's going to be a lot of data and research that's going to come out of all of this. The future for virtual field trips and student-teacher travel, online inquiry projects, online project-based learning, I see that happening. Also in the future, I see students being YouTube influencers, money earners, teaching each other. A major thing I think in the future is going to be scheduling shifts. There are more options for scheduling now. There's hybrid versions, schedules that give students choice in what ways they want to attend and learn. There's also going to be a difference, I think, in the way that we handle teacher and student sick days. And I think the main thing is to get on these committees who are doing the scheduling and be part of that. I do believe tech is here to stay. I personally have seen the investment in my own hands, like over $100,000 worth of tech, of new tech has transferred my hands in this past year. Chromes, adapters, hotspots, speakers. I've seen bandwidth upgrades in schools. I do think there's room here for both tech and teachers. And I think there's going to be more money spent on tech and amazing tech tools coming our way for use. Now, how can we prepare for this future? We prepare by paying attention to what is going on in society. It's equally as important as what's going on in your classroom walls. Pay attention to what society is offering, policies, the laws, economics, PD opportunities. When you do that, I think the future looks very bright. For example, Chicago Public Schools is updating their policies. We have a multicultural ed and diversity policy where our goal is to define what culturally relevant instruction looks like in our schools. We get to join this focus group. We can have influence. There's a new law in Illinois where the Illinois State Board of Education is revising instruction so it's not biased to value specific cultures, time periods, and experiences over others. We can get involved. We have a chance to lead and incorporate our curriculum in a new way with the big picture. CPS has invested $2 billion in federal support on equity. We've already received $900 million from the CARES Act. Look where that money is going in your district so that you can locate opportunities to benefit the Chinese language education. Finally, attend trainings and bring them back to your staff and students. There's a bystander intervention training to stop anti-Asian, American, and xenophobic harassment, and you can learn 5 strategies for intervention that you can take back. There's the U.S. Department of Education offering grants and seminars. There's Asia Society offering a lot of PD. All of these things will help prepare us for the future.
Marianne, thank you so much for challenging us to think about not only what the vision of our classrooms may look like, but the role of language education in society as a whole and how what's happening in society needs to inform what happens in the classroom. Dr. Song, we'd love to hear from you now about your vision for the future of language education and its role in society and how we can get ready for it.
Maybe I can speak Chinese then to express clearly. 我对未来这个大概的设想可能是这样啊，也可能是有一个认知局限问题。AI 技术对教育的促进应该是全方位的啊。我们课堂组织，还有这个确保所有学生都参与学习，布置和批阅作业，准备期末考试，并撰写总结报告。如果针对学生而言呢，有记忆知识、应用知识，将知识转化为理解、自我评估和诊断、反思与自主学习的发展。那么，如果人工智能技术介入这些教学环节当中呢，应该是在每一个环节都有它的发挥的空间和作用啊。那么具体说来讲呢，如果分些类的话，可能还是从这几个方面来看，一个是提供更丰富的资源，第二呢是有相应的一个平台，平台多少是要带有智能性啊。第三呢有一些智能工具。所谓资源呢，是完全是支持学习本身和学科内容的啊。如果平台呢是针对这个管理过程的，工具呢，我们一直认为，如果用有限的资源去面对无限的需求，这个实际是有一个矛盾。因此呢，可以用智能技术辅助老师，产生更多的或者说制作出更多的那个契合自己需要的一些资源。那么在未来教师当中，有可能像这个 VR、AR、MR 技术呢，应该更好的支持教学过程。那么从语言本身习得而言的话，应该说更多的受益于人工智能技术啊。目前比较多的是语音技术。一个发挥的空间，它的可能应用场景，可能是这样啊，一个是这个适应性学习技术，就是自适应学习技术，就是根据学习者自身的一个学习的特征，然后推送相应的资源，这个就要求两方面。这方面呢，一方面要了解学习者自身的一些特征啊，这个要做判断；另一方面，对学习者特征的这个推送相应的资源，这个应该有非常丰富的资源，或者经过分类以后、分级以后的资源来满足需求啊。那么还有一个是这两年发展比较多的啊，已经产生作用的是知识图谱。那么最近有学者在知识图谱这方面呢，又有新的提法叫认知图谱。认知图谱的提法可能更适合于学习者的渐进成长。总而言讲，如果是我们老师想对未来这个人工智能技术助力教育或者促进教育变革有些准备的话，目前在中国大陆，我们更多的需要老师提高自己的信息化素养啊。因为比较而言，前沿的技术发展确实非常快，但是现实的实际情况呢，应该和这个未来发展中间还有一个距离。因此呢，我们对技术做普及，或者说着力于提高老师的信息化素养，应该还是有很多可做的事情啊。我就讲那么多。
Thank you so much, Dr. Song. This is an exciting time to be a language educator. The future is bright, and it's time for us to explore possibilities and time to decide if the changes will happen to us or as Marianne suggested, that we harness the changes and have them happen through us. So thank you all for sharing those insights on our past, present, and view of the future. And we want to take some time now to respond to questions from the audience that have been shared during our session. They'll be sending us some questions to which we'll ask one or more of our panelists to respond. So we'll wait for some of those questions to come through. So we're going to begin with a question about the most challenges Chinese teachers have faced during COVID. So what challenges are specific to teachers of Chinese during COVID? Who would like to take that question?
I can say something about that.
Marianne?
Sure. It's very challenging for me to teach Chinese with a mask. The students can't see my mouth, and even sometimes a clear mask gets foggy. So I would say, and also you can't really see when I'm smiling. So that connection piece that Ping was talking about is a little bit lost. So I think the mask aspect, the physical mask aspect has been a bit challenging.
Because our focus is on innovation, are there any creative solutions that you've observed to address that or work around that?
I can share
Ping.
something. Yes. So I would say, I mean, personally, I was thinking about the mask. I would say recording a video, presenting sort of like flipped classroom for pronunciation practice. And also that's a way I that's a solution to show them your face, then have them see how you pronounce words. And also, I use a lot of video clips from TV shows or reality shows for them to identify on the screen how other people are pronouncing or using the words in the setting. And I would piggyback on what Marianne said about the challenge. And I think it's not just for Chinese teachers, at least in my experience, all of my colleagues probably feel similarly, or maybe it's just me getting, my body's getting old, sort of transferring to different classes. I'm a comprehensible input theory inspired teacher. So I used to have posters all over in my classroom, but now I don't have them since I teach in 5 or 6 different classrooms and I have 5 minutes in transition. I thought about holding up signs, but then I always lose where they are. Didn't have time to put them back. And the solution, I guess, it's very old school. Have a big poster sheet with all the vocab and just leave them in that classroom I'm teaching. And my students would tell me they really miss seeing those words. Anytime I want to, I can point to those to help them comprehend. But it's a way to get around it. Yeah.
Ping, thank you for that reminder that some innovations use traditional technologies, right? Paper and posters, not always digital tools. So we have a number of questions coming through. The next one relates to young and new Chinese novice level learners who are experiencing Chinese learning for the first time through screen-to-screen technologies virtually, and any strategies that you've used to keep them engaged in learning?
I can say something about that. I agree. The pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, first grade are very challenging to teach, especially in remote or hybrid situations. So I think patience has been something that I've learned about this because they cannot read, and more like songs, movement, art. So putting in other cultural aspects along with the reading has helped, like TPR activities. Yeah, this is a very good question. It is a challenge, and I think in the future you're going to see more data and more research done on specifically that age group, because I think they really had a disadvantage during this pandemic in comparison to the older learners.
Absolutely. And we want to encourage people to use the opportunity of the conference to reach out to others using the chat and networking spaces to ask those questions, such as how to best facilitate learning with pre-literate, novice, young learners of Chinese. Thank you. So I also wanted to bring in a privacy-related question to Karen. There's a question about privacy issues with use of social media, especially with younger learners. If you have anything to share about that.
Sure. So I think it's a concern that people generally have with social media because it's so present in our personal life. And I think the best way to avoid violating students' privacy is have a very clear purpose for your platform. For example, on my Instagram page, it's only for Chinese learning, only about Chinese, sometimes a bit of tips and tricks in terms of language learning, but nothing else beyond that. So for example, if you want to utilize social media to teach, to provide more interaction with the students, please make sure that that page is only specifically for that goal, which is teaching Chinese or teaching history, whatever it can be. So I think that's the best way. And after I established this community within my Instagram account, people generally, I would say 80% of them will only have discussions about Chinese learning in this account.
Thank you, Karen. And it's a good reminder to participants to always check with your local school district administration and leadership about what the privacy guidance is and policies are around student privacy. One last question before we share our closing comments is with regard to designing lessons that are inclusive and equitable when you're in a hybrid teaching and learning environment. So you have students in front of you, but you also have students participating in the lesson remotely. Any insights into effective strategies for facilitating that space in which so many of our teachers are operating at this point in time and maybe into the future?
I can. This is exactly the situation I'm in now, hybrid learning, and I've been thinking about this. Honestly, I don't have the perfect answer. Everything is trial and error, but I make an effort to make everything digital. resources, vocabulary on Quizlet, resources uploaded on Canvas. So there's always a curriculum they can go to. And I make myself available to meet with them if they need to. And in class, I would try this information gap activities or questions, have a Zoom team, in-class team, they have team competitions. It's not perfect. There are times I am very frustrated, but all I can hope is there's light at the end of the tunnel. So there will be hope.
Thank
Yes.
you. It's so important for all of us to remember that as teachers, we are also lifelong learners, right? And that's why we come together for conferences such as this to learn with one another. So the goal of this plenary was to explore ways that innovation can improve engagement, equity, and learning in our field. So we're going to close by asking each of our panelists to just briefly share some final words of inspiration, a word or phrase or short message to our attendees, please. Marianne, I'll start with you.
Well, in The Art of War, Sun Tzu said, in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. So my advice is to embrace this opportunity, whatever it may be for you.
Thank you so much. Karen.
As was so when I started teaching Mandarin teacher, I was plugged to this community. So sometimes I felt really helpless, but later on, the platform I taught through formed a Chinese teacher WeChat alliance group where I could raise questions and have discussions. So I think it's such a breath of fresh air to be able to share your experience with others in the same field. And that's exactly how I feel about this conference and today's panel, to be able to join with brilliant minds and hopefully create some solutions and change.
Thank you for encouraging everyone to be a part of this community. It's wonderful. Thank you. Dr. Song.
中国有句俗语叫“道高一尺，魔高一丈”啊。这个技术可以促进教育，但是我们人也有更高的思维来应对这个技术啊。这个在中国有一个学者叫钟义信，他就讲过，信息科学原理当中，目前的最有用的原理就是互动率啊，就是技术可以促进教育。但是教育在技术变革过程当中，我们会有新一代的这个学者产生出来啊，可以更好的利用技术。因此，我觉得我们作为教师，应该有充分的信心来应对这个技术挑战啊。
Thank you, Dr. Song. You inspired me to learn Chinese. So greatly appreciate your contributions to our discussion. And Ping, you have the final word before we say goodbye.
I have 4 phrases. Yes, I have 4 phrases. Number 1 is rooted in students. In Chinese, it's 扎根学生, forever, always the students first. Number 2 is less is more. I've heard this 少即是多, don't do too much. Number 3 is 常变时新, hint with time, always changing. Number 4 is do it gradually. So that's my 4 phrases, 16 Chinese characters to end it. And good luck.
Thank you, Ping. Thanks to all of our panelists for these words of inspiration. I want to thank our ASL interpreters and all of our plenary speakers for sharing your insights and vision and expertise. And I want to thank everyone for joining us for the plenary. Let's go into this conference imagining ways to innovate to improve our practice of language teaching and learning and its role within our communities. Thank you, be brave, and be well.